Like this unit, obviously, it's quite a, let's put it this way, quite a creative unit, because
Okay.
across this concept of marketing pretty much, in our day-to-day lives. So what we are looking at doing today is obviously understanding, what is the role of marketing specifically in the travel and tourism sector.
Mhm.
So what I want to be able to do in this unit is, when we look at the role of marketing, in particular in tourism, what we want to cover especially is, let me open the unit here. So what we want to be able to look at in this particular unit, when we look at the unit aim, is that we want to be able to understand how there are lots of things in marketing. Now, there's marketing mix, there's segmentation, there is positioning. We also look at marketing strategies. We look at lots of frameworks which are there. In the case of marketing management, some of the initial ones that we talk about, things like SWOT, PESTEL. We have BCG matrix and soft matrix. We have Potter's five forces model. Now, there are lots of frameworks in marketing which can be applied to find out the strategic position of the organization, how it reacts to, how it's offering its products and services to customers, what kind of target segment or customers it attracts, and, how it looks at sending or, sending out communication in the form of, let's say, the marketing information, which could be brochures, flyers, and, what kind of target segment it sends this out to. Now,
Mhm.
because the subject of marketing is so vast, what we want to be able to do is look at the key bits of, areas of marketing which we feel are going to be, relevant to tourism and hospitality sector.
Yeah.
So we know that in this particular sector, if you look at the importance of marketing, we are looking at, it playing a very strategic role. The reason I say, let me not use the word strategic, it plays a very key role. The reason I don't want to use strategic at this moment is because it has lots of other connotations, in terms of long-term, short-term, things like that. So it
Right.
plays a key role because marketing as an activity allows you to create a brand, build a brand. It allows you to create recall in the minds of customers, and to a certain extent, all the activities, if I say so, are done through the channel of marketing, are primarily to attract customers. To when I say attract customers, the attraction actually starts off with the consciousness in terms of making them aware of the products and services. At some stage, this awareness leads to interest. This interest then is developed further into, some sort of inquiry or lead generation. And at some stage down the line, when the customers need and want are matched with the requirements that they are seeking and the money they are able to spend, at some
Mhm.
stage the whole process of, marketing completes, because at that stage it transforms into the customer buying the product.
Right.
So to a certain part of it, it transforms into generating a sale. But the whole process of marketing is involved in making the customer aware. Awareness leads to interest. Interest, and here is what I'm talking about, the AIDA model, AIDA. So awareness leads to interest. Interest leads to development of, the motivation to buy, and at some stage, this then finally results in, the customer actually purchasing the product or, services.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of looking at, studying this particular unit with regards to tourism management is to understand what parts of marketing management can be successfully applied to tourism and hospitality sector. And
Right.
here in this case, what we're looking at is that we want to include and understand how tools and techniques which are available within the marketing as a concept are then, applied to the sector for, looking at generating sales, looking at, for example, leading to, say, some sort of an action in terms of the AIDA model. So awareness leading to interest, interest leading to desire, and desire leading to, purchase or some sort of an action. And that is where AIDA comes in. So the
Right.
whole objective of understanding this would be to try and look at applying application of it into the concepts where it makes relevance for increasing the tourism and hospitality business. Now, we will start off the unit by overall understanding the concept of, say, marketing in general, and how is it defined within the tourism and hospitality sector. So I have different definitions of marketing. You can define it from 4 Ps, 7 Ps, different types of concepts like production concept, sales concept, marketing concept, societal concept. But and over the years, the definition of marketing has not really changed. The core definition of marketing has remained the same as a process. But what we want to be able to do is apply this from contextualizing it to basically the sector that we are looking at doing the course in, which is tourism and hospitality. Now, in the first learning outcome, we are looking at focusing on what is the role of marketing, why it becomes a strategic function, and how does it help the various, for example, businesses or various parts of the businesses within the tourism and hospitality sector to markets its products and services to consumers. And at some stage towards the end, what we will also look at is how this can be applied to a context to understand that when we look at marketing a destination, marketing a brochure, marketing a service, or marketing a particular type of a concept in this particular sector, how do we apply that in terms of marketing tools and techniques. So I've put together a few slides which we are going to go through, and after that what I will look at is pick up a case study in terms of applying this model to, say, for example, Mauritius, basically a destination known for basically tourism. Our economy, if we look at closer to Europe, we look at islands like Ibiza, we look at Mallorca, we look at a lot of Greek islands like Mykonos, Santorini. These are islands or places wherein the entire economy and the entire day-to-day functioning in terms of locals and the residents revolves around the concept of marketing that destination all year round. We'll apply this towards the end when we get the task 1.3. So let's look at diving into some of the slides that I've prepared and discuss some of these to kick off with learning outcome 1. Now, there are lots of definitions of marketing, as I mentioned. So when we look at in the context of tourism and hospitality, we know that this sector is a services sector, and this sector thrives on providing customer service. If the service is right, and if you are able to build, the 3 things which are required in tourism in particular, building trust, building relationship, and delivering value. Because at the end of the day, you look at an example of you going to a restaurant or staying in a hotel and you order a meal. If you like the meal, the direct translation of that is sometimes, seen in the tipping that you do to the restaurant. Because if you like the food, if you like the service, it's been prompt and everything has worked seamlessly, well, when you're dining and wining in the restaurant, it's sometimes seen that as a direct, effect of that. You generally see the tipping from the customer, kind of shows that particular appreciation. So if we look at meticulously applying this concept, what we do see is that because this industry is more about, providing goods and services which are directly consumed by the customer. So we have to look at, say, for example, a television program. A television program produced by the, say, for example, an agency or a company is broadcasted, and that broadcast on the television tends to go across to a wide range of audience. But in order to elicit some sort of a response, in between, they might run a promotion, a competition, and that is where they will try and engage with the audience. But when you look at this to contrast of, say, tourism and hospitality industry, what you will see is that if you're walking into a restaurant, if you're booking a hotel, if you're booking a vacation, you have at some stage already decided that this service that I'm going to be taking, this is where I'm staying, and I'm going to be doing these activities. And this is all done on the basis of some sort of initial information that you got from the website, when the booking has been made, and to a certain extent maybe Q&A session which has happened in order to clarify that these facilities or things that you're trying to book or avail are available within the hotel, and that is closely related to you building trust, because when you look at some of these websites in which reviews are posted, when you look at some of these sites when feedback and feedback from customers, awards and other strategies are concerned, those are all looking at building trust with the customer, confidence which is being built to say that, okay, you can choose us with confidence, you can book this hotel with confidence because we will guarantee you the service. The relationship comes once the customers avail the service once or two times, and you find that the service standards or the quality standards do not change, they do not deteriorate. And what tends to happen is, because you like the place, you start frequenting it. At some stage, the engagement in terms of some sort of relationship happens, because the restaurant might start sending out promotional offers, might have a loyalty card, and that tends to bind the customer into some sort of relationship to come and spend more, come and frequent that destination again and again. And the whole concept of newsletters, marketing, promotional offers, all year round from certain types of activities which are done within this sector are primarily aimed at building relationship. And once you have that booking, once you have that customer who are staying at the hotel, it's all about delivering value in terms of ensuring that what they're paying for is what they're getting, and that generally defines the concept of marketing within tourism and hospitality industry. Now, if you look at a bookish or an academic definition, here we're looking at one of the definitions by Peter Drucker, which talks about that marketing is so basic that it cannot be considered a separate function. Because at every step of the way, when you look at the presentation, entrance into the lobby, dealing with the customers at the front desk, the porter taking your luggage to your room or delivering it to your room, at every step of the way, you see certain amount of marketing. Now, the way I see it is, if you enter the hotel and you get into the lobby seems to be the most, prominent and prominently decorated area of the hotel, because that gives or creates the first impression. When you get into a restaurant, when you get into a particular location, the first impressions are generated by where you are actually getting into with regards to the entrance. Then at the front desk, when you greet, when you look at the clothing, the type of attire which the people are dressed in, the branding on the clothes and things like that, it is so basic as a function that you see that pretty much all around. When you're in your room, when you get into the toilets, you see the beddings, you see the the various things which are provided in the room. You will see subtle branding which has been done, the name of the hotel, or certain touches which have been done, and that is why marketing is considered so essential and so basic, because it is involved in each and every aspect of delivery of service within this sector. So, in a way, Peter Drucker defines that it's the whole of the business if it's seen from a point of view of a final result, which is in terms of the final product that is being delivered. You will see that in all these, things which customer touches, feels, experience, there will be a certain amount of brand or service-related aspect of the product which the hotel is trying to provide, and that will create some sort of an experience with the customer. So he calls it a very basic function, and he says it is something which is an integral part of this sector. There is no way that this can be separated, and without marketing, he says, it will be very difficult to provide and make the customers aware of these services which this particular sector actually provides. Now, if you look at the traditional cliched statements, sometimes you get to hear that hospitality marketing is a process. Marketing in general is a process, because it leads to, if you look at the ATHE model, the awareness, interest, that model. If you look at it is a process, because you generally start with the customers, you get the customers into the preference set, and with the preference set comes awareness. Awareness then leads to interest, and interest leading to desire and action, and that is why it is a process. You cannot have somebody, if you're looking at buying a car, let's for example, looking at buying a sports car. Now you do a lot of research around it. You will basically make some inquiries. You might, at the end of the day, go and test drive it. But when you are at that stage of gathering initial, interest about the model, the pricing, the car, basic things in terms of comparison with other models. What you're looking at doing is you're in the awareness stage that, okay, this is something that I can buy, this is something that I can afford.
Right.
And this then turns into an interest, because then you start finding or digging more information about it. So that information could be pricing, colors, availability, say for example, can you buy it secondhand? Can you buy it from a dealership? If you order it, how long does it take? So that's the interest rate which you have started to generate. And at some stage, this interest will lead to a desire. That means you've pretty much mentally made a decision that this is something that I am going to be looking at owning at some stage. How you look at owning it, it could be hire purchase, it could be leasing, it could be outright buying, whatever it is. But at that stage, pretty much, you have had some sort of a connection with the product, wherein you feel that if I buy this product, this is something which is suitable for me, and this is the liking there has converted into something called your want. And that is where the desire comes in. So it's a process, and then towards the end, the action is you end up buying the car. Now, whichever way you buy it, you end up buying it. So similarly, if you look at a process of you booking a vacation, where you're going for the first time, for example, if you're visiting the Bahamas for the first time, or you're going on a beach holiday or a trekking holiday or a skiing holiday, and this is an activity that you've never done before, how would you do this? Is because there are some newsletters which are coming in, or you've subscribed to some mailers, and that starts to create, a bit of interest.
Yes.
At some stage, it leads to desire, action, and then, finally, you ending up buying it or booking it. So it's a process. Every activity that is done in this sector, and in general across, when we look at marketing, it's a process. Now, there are other things that you look at. Now, what are the main services that you look at within this sector? So when we define, various services that you can book or achieve or get within this sector, I would look at, resorts. I would look at hotels, restaurants, airlines, amusement parks. I would look at events, conferences, meetings. I would also look at, certain types of destinations that you go for, vacation. It could be wherein you're taking a vacation, say, for spiritual purposes. It could be a vacation that you're taking for example, some sort of experiential, reasons. So a lot of people, when they decide that, I'm going to go on a trekking vacation, I'm going to try and climb Kilimanjaro or, Ben Nevis in the UK, it is more because they want to experience the height, and, it is not a normal activity that you will undertake. So within tourism and hospitality, there are lots of different types of activities that you can take. And each of these activities has a very close association with, marketing. So when we look at segmentation, when we look at this particular sector as an ecosystem, within that you have lots of different types of things which offer different types of services. So when we look at airlines, are basically an integral part of driving tourism and hospitality management, because the world has become small. It's becoming a smaller place because of availability of budget airlines, cheaper tickets, air travel becoming more economical. A lot of people are able to afford and are able to now look at holidays abroad. But previously, if I look at 30, 40 years back, I think it was a privilege for a few, and then most people went across to nearby cities or places within the country when they thought of holiday and vacation. But now, because of this, airline is an integral part of this industry, but they have a very different segmentation because they provide different types of services. But when you look at Ryanair, EasyJet, they've gone into hotels, cars, amusement, vacations or total holiday packages. And then when you look at, they also, provide the core product or service, which is, transportation. So what does airline provide? Transportation. When we look at hotels, what do they provide? Kind of bed and breakfast. Their main service is, providing a place to stay and place to eat. But within that, there are lots of other activities which are possible. So when you look at places which are, say for example, when you look at places like Macau, you look at Amsterdam, you look at places like Las Vegas, they have an ecosystem within the hotel as well. So casinos, for example, lots of other activities which are there within the hotels, and they tend to pull the crowds in and it is a complete package. You don't need to travel outside. You are in the hotel itself to, look at experiential marketing, or in this case, trying out lots of different types of services. When you look at amusement parks, when you look at Disneyland, for example, it is an experience within itself. So when you go, you stay within the park, you do pretty much everything within the park. And in that case, what you get to see is that these are packaged holidays wherein it's total fun for the family, or, there's total entertainment for the family because it includes air travel, accommodation, food, activities that you can do in that place. So it is a concept. When we look at, and we look at expanding this in terms of definition, you're primarily looking at this being a process, and there are lots of different types of concepts which can be applied in reaching out to the customer. But the key three ingredients with regards to marketing and the connection with tourism and hospitality sector remain is to use this as a process to build trust, to use this as a process to build relationships so that you can get customers coming back, and last but not the least, in order to deliver value. That means customers have fixed specific budgets. Say, for example, you have a certain budget of holiday that you want to book, and in that budget, you will primarily want to get as many things as possible. So it's a constant case of matching customers' expectation with the budgets and the services that they can avail because of that budget.
Right.
Now, because in the first assessment criteria, we are looking at understanding the marketing concept, we need to look into certain generic definitions of, what does marketing and marketing in terms of various concepts mean. So when we look at marketing, there are 5 different types of concepts that we look at. There's a production concept, product concept, selling concept, marketing, and societal marketing concept. Each of these concepts are slightly different. So when you look at production concept is primarily looking at, customers favoring actual buying of products and services. And this is facilitated from a point of view of a company or an organization which is primarily producing a lot of, goods and services. So when we look at Disneyland as an example, or a resort as an example, that is thriving on the concept of production concept because they have already laid down the infrastructure in terms of accommodation, activities which the customers can do, and they then want the customers to come in and obviously utilize these services when they stay within that location. So there, the concept is primarily related to, production concept. That means they've got a fixed infrastructure, and because of the fixed infrastructure, they then try to, basically look at increasing the output by decreasing the cost, because the costs have been spent at the time of creation of this infrastructure, and their aim is to now maximize the sale of these products, or in the sense, increase the occupancy throughout the year of these resorts in order to, drive the concept of, economies of scale.
So if let's say a hotel opened up a new restaurant, that's an example of a production concept.
Will be yes, because when you set it up, what you do is you're basically looking at setting up a fixed infrastructure, and you want inbound services to happen. That means customers will come into the restaurant and use those services again and again, and that is where you're looking at building on economies of scale, because you're producing something directly which the customers, or in this case as a restaurant, which customers consume. Is that okay? The second thing that we look at is the product concept. The product concept basically relates to the fact that, say, for example, a particular type of organization within this sector might be selling individual products and services. So when I look at airlines, if I look at EasyJet and Ryanair, when they initially started off, their main product or the service that they were providing was air travel or transportation. But over the years, that has expanded into now they try and provide other things. But when an operator or when a company within this sector is providing one type of service, then that concept will be called the product concept, and they then tend to provide this product or that service, which is a signature. That means it is their specialty what they provide. So if I look at Ryanair and EasyJet, the main source of their business is transportation or airline travel. They have other ancillary services or products that they've added, things like, the insurance services. You look at hotels, you look at, in some places they offer packages and, renting or hiring of cars. They are all ancillary products for them. But the main product for them is transportation or travel. So when you look at hotel, the main product for them is bed and breakfast. They are basically places of dwelling, or where the customers will stay overnight, or will choose them as a place of stay. But they also provide other services like restauranting, activities, tours. They are ancillary services. But the main service is a hotel. Why do you choose a hotel? Is because you want to go into a particular place and stay overnight, or you're visiting that destination and you're staying there. Now, similarly, when you look at the selling concept, what we are looking at this selling concept is that here, the customers are primarily looking at buying the products and services. So it's a reverse of the product concept wherein the company is selling, but here the customers are actually buying. So in this case, we come across a term that it's a buyer's market. So sometimes you see that there are lots of different types of offers and promotions available, but it is the customer which actually decides which product I want to buy, and they have a preference over which one, in terms of choice. And in those cases, the selling concept becomes important, is because it proposes what you call products and services which the customers can actually avail in terms of looking at using, and that is why it is a selling concept. Marketing concept tends to be, for example, it is a subset of I would say the selling concept, because to a certain extent, if you broaden the activity of how you reach out to customers, you're looking at different types of activities which happen. These activities start off with a bit of research. It could be looking at promotion, public relations. It could be advertising. All these things, when you look at the marketing concepts, comes into play, is because when you try and identify customers in terms of which customers you want to reach out to, or what is your target audience, target market as we call it, TA or TG, then in those cases, the companies start off with the marketing concept. So imagine when Uber, as an example, started off with the unique product that they are going to be offering cab or taxi sharing services. So when you look at taxi or cab sharing services, this was a new concept in the market, and they had to start off with finding out the basic things which were regarding the needs and wants of customers. And with that needs and wants, this product was created, wherein it will allow you to order a cab or a taxi using an application. It will provide transportation from point to point, and slowly and gradually they started off with this concept. At some stage now, this has become a product concept because they offer a particular service, which is cab sharing service. Then when we look at the last concept in terms of concept which is related to the societal marketing concept, what we do get to see is that in this case, primarily the focus from a point of view of marketing and the process of marketing is primarily not just on decision making which the consumers do, but we also look at long-term needs and requirements of the environment, maybe the organization, and from a customer point of view as well. So here the main focus is primarily on understanding what is best for a particular place from a point of view of organization, environment, and also for consumers. So society, the word, adding the word society to the concept of marketing broadens this out, because here when you try and do some activities, when you try and create something which is going to be used by customers in the long run, what you're trying to do is make sure that the environment is taken care of, the organization is able to benefit and also provide some of these benefits back to the society, and customers at the end of the day are able to use these products and services. So these are 5 broad concepts that we look at why marketing is required in any business. And when we relate them to hospitality and tourism sector in general, we will look at contextualizing it with a bit of an example to understand some of these concepts. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, just broadly, if we compare marketing and sales concepts, in terms of this. So if you look at the selling concept, actually starts off when you see the product actually available. The product is actually there. So the factory is producing, it's an existing product. All you're doing is using the marketing as a process to advertise and promote it. And at the end of the day, if you're able to generate volumes or certain amount of volumes which are as per your business plan, and that break even happens, then at that stage, you're essentially generating profits. But if you look at the marketing concept, it starts off with the market. It is not starting in the factory, because the company here has not been able to establish what the market is, who the target customer is, how they are going to go across to the target customer, and at the end of the day, whether this product will stick or not stick, whether this service will be liked or not liked, whether this service will be something which is unique in the market or not. So those are things that you have to start off with, and here the main point of start is the market, because it's an innovative product, or it's a product which has not been introduced, or a service which is not available. And when it is available or is going to be made available for the first time, companies will have to start with the basics of understanding the market, consumer, target segment, and that is why a marketing concept will be applied. And when you look at the sales concept, here you will look at starting off, because the product is already there. There's a need and demand which has already been established, and the company is actually looking at maximizing sales and profits by using marketing as a channel to promote the products and services in order to get more customers buying it. And when more customers buy it, you're looking at getting more sales, more volume, and that at the end of the day looks at for example, generating more profits.
Yes.
Is that okay? Mm-hmm. So let's look at another few things in terms of what is the importance of marketing within the sector. Now, this has become relevant primarily because when we looked at technology, the previous unit that we've studied, in this case, what we looked at is because of the internet connectivity, things like that being made available now, it has become important to provide information to customers firsthand. And that is where the concept of marketing has become more important in this case, is because you need to get the information out there. When the information out there is available, it gets into the awareness, and again you start looking into the ATHE model, wherein you provide information to get into the the consideration set of the customer, or in the mind frame of the customer, and that is where the importance of marketing becomes quite important. So as we look at hotel chains and say for example, most of these places, reaching out to customers are concerned, the whole area of marketing has become quite important, whether it's social marketing, internet marketing, website marketing, information being available has become quite important. And you see a particular role of a person within this setup is that when you have a hotel, you normally would see people who work within the hotel as either business development managers, marketing managers, event managers, and the reason why they do it is because at some stage they're looking at, again, dipping into the concept of building trust, relationship, and delivering value, is because they're looking at bringing customers to utilize that facilities again and again. Is that okay? Now, some examples of looking at what you call best practices. When I say some examples of looking at marketing and how in this sector it is used, you look at Four Seasons Hotel, they look at designing everything from a customer's point of view. So they put customers first. When you look at Singapore Airlines, at some stage, now obviously it's not there, but that's specific to airlines. You look at Emirates. You look at, for example, Etihad Airways. You look at British Airways, things like that. Why are they looking at wanting to become a top-ranked product? Is because reviews are important, and reviews are important because it helps in building that confidence, and that allows customers to choose that particular service or booking with that airline because of safety, reaching on time, other facilities that they provide allows them to, get more customers or repeat customers to use their service. So some of these things have to be looked at, and there are examples of how some of these facilities, like hotels, airlines, destinations, have used marketing successfully to achieve a certain amount of status. So whether it's the world's best airport for the most memorable experiences, the top ranked product, these are all things which, titles which they've been able to achieve because of the process of, marketing.
Marketing. Yeah.
Now let's look at, the second concept in terms of drilling it down to a bit of destination-related, marketing. How marketing is used as a concept to promote a particular destination for tourism. Now we know that tourism as an activity, is something which you do primarily for leisure purposes, could be for business purposes, spiritual purposes, things like that. But there are certain places that you go across to, and they tend to be the destinations or places which are kind of marked as or called as primarily destination or locations where people would go predominantly for tourism. So they are called destination. So if I look at the definition of destination, what we are looking at is in this case definition by the United World Trade Organization, United Nations. It calls it as a physical space in which a visitor spends at least one night, and it is normally different from your place of dwelling. So if I'm in Manchester, and that's my hometown, but if I'm traveling from Manchester to London and I stay there at least one night, and it is not my hometown, then I would say that I'm traveling, to a location which is considered for various reasons, but it would be considered as something that you are, traveling for, say, tourism, say a type of tourism. I could go in for a business meeting, conference, whatever it is, picking up a friend, family coming into London, but I am going there, and that would be classed as an activity which is called tourism. Yes. Now, when we look at destination marketing, there are a lot of locations which are thriving on the fact that, they are what are called tourist destinations. The entire infrastructure, the economy actually moves on the activity of tourism. So when you look at that, in those cases, these destinations are termed as, destination or, termed as tourist destinations. And I gave you an example earlier. When you look at islands like Mauritius, Macau, you look at Las Vegas, you look at Amsterdam, you look at Majorca, Santorini, you look at Mykonos. These are islands or places which have become synonymous with tourism. Some sort of a tourism might happen, but main activity in that location is primarily, tourism. And when we look at destination, Dickman, one of the authors who has done a lot of research on this particular concept of destination marketing, or why is it a destination for tourism, defines it in a 5A model, that if we call a particular location a destination for tourism, they need to classify and meet the criteria of these 5 A's. So they need to have attractions, activities, they need to be accessible, they have lots of amenities which the tourists can use, and it also provides, accommodation, which primarily would be, for the stay of the tourists overnight. Yes. So just give me 1 second. So from our point of view, these 5 A's need to be, met. Now, there's another scientist who has done some research, and that's Butler, and he talks about, slightly old, but he talks about, the tourist area, of interest, in terms of how does a particular destination become a destination of interest, wherein you go again and again, for stay or, for utilizing certain services. So in this case, 1 second. So in this case, how do they change? Let me give you an example. So when I say that, you as a family or you as a person with family visit one particular location every year, and that could be you go in for a skiing holiday or you go in for a beach holiday every year. But after a point in time, what tends to happen is you get used to that location, and wherein, you come to a stage wherein you've had enough, or you've been to that location a number of times, and what you then tend to do is you tend to shift that location. So he talked about the area in terms of the interest that, why certain places over a point in time lose their relevance of being a tourist destination, and how does the customer interest then, influence this change over a point in time, because when you're single, you're choosing to go across for tourism activities to a certain type of locations. When you are going with a family, you have to choose a different type of a location because you have interests of a lot of different types of members within the family. And in some cases, when you look at booking a holiday, you will consider, if you're a bachelor, you're going with your spouse. At some stage, if you have kids, your preferences to the locations that you book or the locations that you go to for a vacation actually change. And that is dependent on, in terms of your life cycles. So how you're moving in your life from being a single person to being married to having kids, and to, when you get into an age wherein the activity of tourism is primarily for, say, spiritual purposes or for a change, or in some cases it tends to be for, reasons which are predominantly defined, wherein you are actually visiting family or friends or relatives, or attending, say for example, some sort of, a function or an occasion. So there's some research around this which Butler has done, and he says there's a life cycle to it, and that is how, some of these changes are reflected in what he produced, in terms of a bit of research. Now, when we look at destination and destination from a point of view of tourism, there's a lot of level of planning which goes into it. Now, these levels of planning can happen at various levels. So when you look at, say, for example, I looked at earlier this morning, this as an example was, when you look at the Olympics which happened in 2012, there was a lot of planning which went around bidding to get hold of Olympics as an event, which has driven a lot of tourism activity into London and into the UK in 2012 and beyond. So when you look at that kind of effort which is put in, that would be put in with years of planning which happens because the infrastructure needs to be developed. But the bidding for that happened in 2008 when London was awarded, by the Olympic Committee, that the next destination where the Olympics will happen will be London. So when you look at this, what I'm trying to get at is that when you start to look at promoting a particular location as a destination or as a place for tourism, to increase the tourism activity, what happens is there are different sorts of planning which happen. So there's the planning which happens at the national level, at the regional level. It happens at the ground level, which is the destination itself or the city in which that activity is going to happen. And then a lot of individual segments of this sector, in the tourism and travel sector, you will see a lot of planning happening. So when we knew that London is going to be awarded the Olympics and it was announced, so a lot of national level planning started to happen. Government had to sanction budgets, building of stadium infrastructure, rules and regulations, all those things started to happen. Then once that bit was put into play, at some stage, the local organizations, the hotels, other individual businesses started to do a bit of planning to augment capacity, to look at having more staff, during that 30-40-day period for which the Olympics happen, because they anticipate that there will be increased tourist activities during that particular point in time when the event is happening. And the city would then be required to cater to, more, say, for example, provide more facilities and provide more services because of the influx of additional, people coming into the city to take or participate in that particular event. So there are lots of levels of planning which needs to happen, and this can be applied across when we say, to any activity that we are looking at. So if I look at Las Vegas, for example, just as an example, and if there's a new hotel which is being built, at some stage the planning permission goes in, the sanctions happen, the construction actually starts. But at that stage itself, when it's happening on ground, if we
Mm-hmm.
look at other set of activities, at some stage down the line when the hotel is 70-80% complete, you will see that the organization starts hiring or starts talking to tour operators, airlines, marketing and things like that. Those set of activities starts to kick off. And at some stage, when everything is ready, there's an inauguration, there's a PR campaign which is run, and in order to start these services, promotional offers and discounts are put out, and then local businesses are contacted, or the people within that area are contacted to ensure that they are able to, percolate that to the micro level marketing, which is required to increase visibility, promotional awareness of that hotel in order to make it a success. So levels of planning need to be applied, and sometimes these levels can be at different types, which could be national level, it could be regional, it could be just the destination or the location itself, which is gearing up to do a lot of activities, and finally, it could be done at the individual organization's end in order to promote that. Now, related to this term of destination, we also look at another term which is called Destination Marketing Organization, DMOs. Now, these are organizations which promote a particular destination and they are focused on driving tourist activity to that location. So when we look at certain of these types of locations that we've talked about, if you decide that I want to go in, for example, and visit the outback in Australia. Now, there are certain types of tour operators which will be specialists in providing that as a package. And they tend to be what are called DMOs or Destination Management Organizations. They are the ones which will provide the full package, including transportation, take you to the outback, let you meet the Aboriginals, take you to the Red Rock. And you're spending the time wherein they offer everything and they plan everything for you from start to finish. And
Are these organizations, is it like a synonymous with a tour operator or a travel agent?
I think it is more than a travel operator, more than a tour operator, because they will go the extra mile from starting to provide everything that you will deal with, touch, experience, and use during the duration of your stay in that location. So destination marketing organizations tend to be specialist tour operators. For example, if you want to go on a Kenyan safari, you want to go and do a safari in Africa. So there, when you stay within the safari park, you basically are going to be in that location for a couple of days and you do a number of activities. They will only promote that destination or that particular activity. So it is that they are specialists in providing safari activities within Kenya, Nigeria, things like that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, apart from that, slight bit of detailing on that, which I'm not going to, but it gives you the basic idea here. We are not looking at studying this in a bit more detail because at some stage, I think there is going to be one particular unit which will focus on this, and that will cover destination management. Now, looking at one other framework, when we look at the WISE model. Now here, when we look at this model, actually proposes that when we look at destination as a concept, and we look at DMOs as an organization which promote that concept, they tend to utilize marketing model called WISE. And in this case, they look at picking up an environment. There is an industry around it. There is a community, and the visitor tends to be the one which is actually taking utilizing that service in that location. So when we look at this particular concept, and I looked at the example of, say, for example, the Kenyan safari that you go to. So here, using this model, they will try and create a structure for different stakeholders, so that one, the customer who is going in for that experience gets that experience, but at the same point in time, the environment is maintained or is preserved. There is an industry around it because that industry, when I say the industry, the safari park, that particular thing is livelihood for certain type of people in that area. And in some cases, when you look at, say, for example, they also have a thriving community. So when I look at the Amazon, there are lots of different types of people living within the Amazon. There are lots of small communities. So what these kind of organizations create some sort of trips, or destination marketing for tourists or for customers, they need to look at something called sustainable, tourism activity. And that can be done by using, say, this particular model, which is called, the WISE model. So VICE model is currently being utilized to develop what is called sustainable tourism activity within areas. That means you need to promote tourism to a certain extent wherein it preserves or does not have a detrimental effect on the environment. It creates an industry which provides livelihood, for a lot of different types of customers, businesses, organizations. It helps the community thrive, but at the same point in time, the customer which is helping develop this as an economy contributing towards it, which is the visitor, also is taken care of in terms of getting the experience. So there's a balance they try and achieve, and that is where this concept of the VICE model for developing sustainable tourism in a particular area or in a particular destination is now coming into play.
Right.
Okay. Now, what I want to look at some stage now would be to get into, there are some slides which I've explained, which basically, would look at giving you more details on, destination marketing, a particular location being chosen as a destination. I'll give you a simple example here to cover some of these slides. You look at Barcelona, for example, as a city. Now, Barcelona, as an example, when you look at, certain of these big events which happen globally, you look at Wireless Japan, you look at CTIA, which is a congress which happens for telecommunication companies in the US every year. Right. You look at Barcelona and FIRA, there are some destinations wherein business meeting conferences, these kind of large events happen once a year. Now, in this case, when we look at the concept of why these cities have been chosen, is because of that 5 A's which these cities are able to, have. So they have amenities, they have accommodation, they have easy accessibility, and these reasons allow them to be promoted as what is called, a particular suitable location for some sort of an activity. So when you look at Barcelona, you look at Las Vegas, for example, you look at in Tokyo, Wireless Japan, you look at the Moscone Center, the Apple launches, which, for example, happen or used to happen in the Moscone Center. Now it's happening within the own Apple campus in California, in Palo Alto. But before that, one of the centers in which some of these, big, large events happen, wherein 1,500 journalists, customers can attend the event, experience the product. They tended to be places wherein you hold these kind of launch events. And over the years, these locations have become, when I say location, Moscone Center just has become a location for conferences and meetings.
Right.
When I say Moscone. Sorry, not Moscone. So, when I look at this particular center, which is in, California in particular, this particular center is known for meeting and conferences. And there are lots, this center is huge. I think it's about 250,000 square, feet in terms of area to provide this much, for meeting, conferences, events to happen. Now, why has this become a signature place for holding such events? Is because in this case, this has been, say, for example, promoted as this is the big center. So it's in the heart of the city. It's known primarily for exhibitions, conferences, and this is then promoted as a destination by the organization to hold all kind of events that you would want to hold, whether it's a launch event, product launch, advertising, road shows, fashion shows, things like that. Now, when this is to happen and somebody is looking at putting this investment into infrastructure and other things, there's a lot of planning which goes behind it. Why has this been chosen? The 5 A's. So when you look at this as a concept, as an example, you're able to relate to some of the slides which are put for, the assessment criteria 1.2. And that tends to discuss, things like how destinations domestically and internationally marketed to visitors, and why they become a destination. And that is what has been explained in some of these slides. So just go through them. They're easy to understand. I don't think I need to put any stress on it because I've explained that with a bit of an example, and I hope you've got the idea that why they are promoted as locations or specific locations for holding certain types of events. And these type of events tend to happen year on year, in these locations because they have that 5 A's, which is related to, what was Dickman's, research, that these locations have these kind of facilities which allow them to become destinations for holding certain types of events, activities, and draws influx of, visitors or tourism as an activity to that location.
Yeah.
Now, the last bit that we want to look at is, what we want to look at is, there are lots of different concepts that, as I mentioned earlier, we need to look at in terms of marketing management, which can be applied to, to this particular sector. But what we need to look at is, take it up with a bit of an example. And what I've done is looked at a case study, and we are going to look at, say, Mauritius as a location or as a destination, and going to try and apply some of these concepts, to understand how marketing is used within this sector to promote the tourism activity.
Right.
Is that okay? Now, I'm going to go through some bits of it, and I'll also email this to you, and this will also be then on the Moodle so that you can access it. Now, the two concepts that we are using in terms of strategic modeling tools, or as models, one is a SWOT analysis, the most simple sort of analysis tool that we use, in marketing. The other one is PESTEL and the Potter's 5 Forces model. What I've done in the presentation is basically a case study, but I've kind of turned it around into a presentation to ensure that you are able to see how some of these models can be applied, as marketing tools to the concept of, the tourism or tourism as an activity. So there are lots of them, and I've got the answer of metrics as well. I've tried to cover a few to explain how each element and each type of tool is applied to each element of marketing activity within this particular sector. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to go through this with you on the session, but the idea would be to try and read this, so that it is, it's simple to understand. Quickly, let's look at going through one, which is, the case analysis of Mauritius as a destination for tourism. Now, when I have to do a SWOT, what you do in the SWOT, you identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is we've classed the strengths of Mauritius as a destination in the strengths here. So things like the economy is multilingual. That means people speak multiple languages. The government is quite stable. There's economic growth which is happening in that country for the last 2 decades. It has a safe cable. That means some of the beaches have, because it's an island within the ocean, there are beaches wherein there are safety cables which are put in so that, it is for safety purposes for the tourists when they get into activities, do not get drifted away into, say, for example, the ocean. It's got a colorful heritage and history. There are lots of different types of activities which you can do because of the topography of the island and the destination. And then there is a lot of funding coming into the hotel infrastructure, which is currently being developed, has been developing for the last 2 decades, and provides a lot of variety and choice to customers who are actually visiting that destination.
Right.
Similar, we have done some weakness. Now, to a certain extent, this destination has a very unclear branding or positioning with regards to customers in mind. So people don't see Mauritius as, say, a premium or a luxury destination, even though over the years, the hotels, the companies which have invested a lot of money there have tried to create, bespoke services or, tourism services in that area.
Yeah.
There is restrictive air policy. That means not, because of the size of the airport, it cannot take a lot of load in terms of airlines coming in. So obviously there's restrictive capacity and things like that.
Yeah.
Then opportunities. How can the destination improve its overall appeal to the customers globally? So a lot of opportunities which are there, things like branding needs to be done, which could be done at the regional level, at the national level, and at the local level in order to promote the activity of, tourism. Access to countries could be improved. As of now, from a point of view of air travel and the airlines which land, there are only 24 countries which are accessible, which have direct access to Mauritius. But then there are connecting flights and things like that. So, that has been classed out, using SWOT analysis for this particular sector. And then I've done it, for example, for, Mauritius, from a point of view of SWOT, and then we get into PISTOL, which is another framework, and we look at something else, and that's how you can look at applying some of these models, within this sector from a point of view of marketing and strategy.
Right.
Is that okay? This tends to be a generic presentation that we use across, marketing management or strategic marketing as a concept across a lot of different courses. So that is why some part of this is a long presentation, 56 slides. I'll try to see if I can just extract, the tourism bit out of it, which are 15, 20 slides, rather than you having to go through everything. But yes, it will give you a clear idea in terms of, how some of this is used, and the case of Mauritius as an activity, and why it is being promoted as a destination for tourism is the one that you need to refer. So slides 13, I would say, onwards to slide 25.
Okay.
Are relevant to, the that we want to look at with the assessment criteria 1.3. The application of the marketing models and techniques you have to apply in this particular task. So you have to pick up a destination. So when I send you this slide, you might pick up something in terms of your, the island that you're on, or for example, a point of view of tourism activity, but apply maybe a different model, like a Porter's model or an ANSOF model or a SWOT analysis or a PESTEL, to show how you've used the marketing models and techniques which can be applied to promote a destination for tourism and hospitality business. Is that okay?
Yeah, understood.
Good stuff. Any questions on this feature so far?
No, I'm all right.
So I'm going to put this presentation, the new one, on the Moodle just after the session, and I'll forward this on to you in a couple of minutes as well, just on the email with a copy of the recording, so that if you want to revisit or look at something in terms of revisiting this, you can do that through the recording.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to stop recording now, and then